researchers at the University of Oxford have found that if you use a little bit of that electroshock therapy in the prefrontal cortex, it can actually help people learn math faster. So there was a control group, and of course there was a group that had very light electrical currents sent to their prefrontal cortex. And what they found was that the people who had the electroshock therapy were actually able to learn new symbols. Now, this is all made-up math that the researchers did, right? They were able to learn the made-up version of math faster than the control group. And then they went back and they researched it 6 months later. And even 6 months later, they were 30 to 40% faster than the control group. So it's amazing, and Cara, you know a lot about the human brain, so I want to get your thoughts on this.
I think one thing is to be careful about using the term like electroshock, because if we think of traditional electroshock, which is actually called electroconvulsive therapy for like treatment of depression, it's a pretty intense ordeal. Like it causes seizures and it can cause memory loss. In this case, it's more probably similar to what we think of as transcranial magnetic stimulation, where you're actually, putting current through. Well, it's an interesting kind of research area. It's not a well-validated treatment area, but research has been done for years in low-level currents being delivered to certain parts of the brain from outside the skull, so it's non-invasive, and seeing what kinds of effects they have. If we think about it, our brain functions on two levels. We have a chemical functionality to the brain, like neurotransmitters. We have an electrical functionality. The cells actually fire. They put off electrical current. So what they're talking about here is manipulating the electrical activity in very certain regions of the brain, inducing some sort of learning modality, which they've done before, just not with math. And then they're actually seeing that in the non-control group, in the experimental group, the math sticks. So months later the math sticks. But you have to remember that they received the electrical stimulation and they practiced math.
Yeah. So those two things are very important because the researchers believe that if they didn't practice math as they were receiving the therapy, then it wouldn't be as effective. And by the way, they received that the electrical current for about 20 minutes for 5 days in a row. So that's how long the therapy lasted. But I think that this is really interesting research because I think it could definitely help people who aren't good at particular subjects, specifically math.
You weren't a fan
specifically
of,
math. Which a lot of people do have issues with math, both from a learning disorder perspective, just like with reading, people are dyslexic, people have dyscalculia, dysgraphia, but also it's kind of one of those subjects that's a little bit scary for a lot of people. And so I think if they feel like, oh, this treatment or this procedure could help you be better, there could be a strong placebo effect in there too. Like, oh, I'm going to be better at this because I have this, then you might actually try a little bit harder, which is interesting. I have to say, I love the quote at the bottom of this. I love Emily Underwood, who wrote this for Science Now. It's hilarious. One of the researchers says, we strongly caution you not try this at home, no matter how tempted you may be to slap a battery on your kid's head.
That's funny.
Probably not a good idea. This is in the earliest stages. It's not that I question the methods, but they did this study with only 25 participants. I think we need to see it repeated. We need to see it with a much larger sample.
So what do you think about like online games that are meant to stimulate your mind, like Lumosity? That's something that you see probably advertised on a lot of our videos. Not because we chose them as an advertiser, but because that's how YouTube works. But I haven't tried it, but do you think that games like that do actually work to help stimulate your brain?
I'm not going to sit here and say that they're bad for you. Of course they're not bad for you, but there's no good clinical evidence to support that they do anything beneficial either. And I love the commercials because they say things like, Lumosity is based on neuroplasticity. It's this fascinating type of neuroscience. Learning? It means if you learn stuff, you'll remember stuff? Like, of course, yes, anytime you're learning something new, it's good for you. You know what I mean? And that's really all it is. So whether you need a video game to tell you that that's what you're doing or you pick up a book, like, I don't think it's really necessary.
All right.
I don't know what Lumosity is because I'm not even going to say the word because I don't want to encourage our fans to use it, but I don't see those ads, I'll just say that. But yeah, I do like, by the way, though, we know, I don't know about Lumosity, those games, but we know that video games have positive impacts on learning and things like that. And I like that you differentiated between the chemical interactions in the brain and the electrical interactions in the brain, because thankfully over the last few centuries, the last thousands of years, we have been, at least anecdotally, experimenting on our brain in chemical ways and modifying it like that through various drugs.
Right.
It's a brave new world, though, that now we can use electricity on the brain.
Yeah.
And I recently saw, I hope that this wasn't an Onion article or something like that, but I recently saw that they did something akin to the Matrix, where they were able to show images, I think subliminally, to people to get them to learn various skills. And I don't know if it's going to be Lumosity or this or the Matrix thing, but I love that we're learning more about the brain. Like, I want to be experimented on. I want to learn in all new ways, because it takes a long time to read a book.
What was the name of that movie with Bradley Cooper in it? Where
Limitless.
Limitless.
With the pill,
like I want them to come up with some
I've-
sort of pills.
I have huge issues with that. That'll never work. Same as the Matrix. It would never. So we can talk about that. But I do think that the point that you're making is an important point to take. And I think that this is why this brain initiative that Obama has set out to do this brain activity map and really look at the brain in ways that we didn't before. We have we have a huge body of evidence about locality in the brain, systems neuroscience. So saying this part of the brain tends to be highly responsible for this. If you damage that part of the brain, you'll lose this kind of faculty. We also have a lot of evidence about what happens at the cellular level, exactly how a cell metabolizes sugars, exactly how it fires. It's the network level that we're still missing a lot of information. How do those connections come about? How do individual cells all talking to each other give rise to brain activity? And that's where it gets really complicated, because there's so many different permutations and combinations, so many different mathematical ways that your cells can connect. I mean, the numbers, the sheer numbers of possibilities and how your brain pruned itself are literally astronomical, like comparable to the number of atoms in the cosmos. I mean, it gets really fascinating. There's so much more to learn, and I think it's awesome that the president wants to push in that direction.